Hello friends. There's an ancient Chinese myth about the red thread of faith, where the gods have tied a red thread around the ankles of people whose lives were destined to touch. This thread may stretch and tangle, but it'll never break. It's all been predetermined by mathematical probability. Now sit back, relax, as I tell you about the show Touch. Young Jake Baum is one of these people who can recognize these probabilities, hidden in plain sight. It's his job to keep track of these mathematical probabilities and to make the connection of those lives who need to touch. Jake has been alive for a little over 11 years.
And in all that time, I've never said a single word.
Martin Baum, Jake's father, has had multiple jobs to keep Jake and him afloat, currently being employed at an airport where he can get some lost phones for a few bucks for his son to take apart. In the box full of lost phones, one of them starts to ring. He answers, and on the other end it's the owner of the lost phone, asking if he can have it back, for there are some important photographs on it of his daughter, who passed away a year ago. As Martin looks for a pen to write down the owner's address, his own phone starts to ring. To answer it, he lays the phone on some luggage that gets shipped off somewhere with the phone still on it, but Martin is too distracted by the other call to notice. The phone call was from his son's school, that he's run off again and is sitting on top of a huge cell tower. Urgently, Martin makes his way to get his son to safety. When he arrives, the fire department and the police are already on the scene. He instructs them to not touch him under any circumstances, and he'll bring him down. Since Martin is scared of heights, he lures Jake down with the lost phones he bought. When Jake is finally down, Martin is informed that he tripped the alarm exactly at 3:18 every time. And since it's the third time this has happened, the police is gonna have to report it to child services. Martin apologizes for their trouble and takes Jake to a gas station. Distracted by kids in a school bus, Martin doesn't realize Jake has snuck out of the car. Martin quickly follows him to the school bus, getting him to come with him to get his favorite orange soda. Before walking inside, Martin notices the school district number on the back of the bus is 318 as well. Thinking nothing else of it, Martin and Jake walk inside to get the soda. There's a man in front of them buying a lottery ticket, naming out the numbers: 87, 1, 9, 20, 31, 11. Martin is watching the news about the children left orphaned after the 9/11 attack. Jake notices the man buying the lottery ticket has the numbers 318 tattooed on his fingers. Before the man can grab his ticket, Jake snatches it from the counter, quickly walking towards the car. Once inside, he locks the door, only opening them when he's written down the numbers on the ticket. After the ticket is returned, the man says,
"You ought to keep that kid in a cage."
This understandably angers Martin, but when he grabs the man, he gets punched in the stomach. Meanwhile, in Dublin, Ireland, a young woman named Kayla is being filmed singing in a bar with the phone Martin lost in the luggage. The co-worker that took the video got the phone from another co-worker who found the phone in his bag after flying in from New York. The phone is filled with videos and messages from all around the world. Before they go home, the man passes Kayla's co-worker. He has some bags with him, with the Japanese flags on the zippers. The co-worker quickly puts the phone in the bag before the man notices. At 3:18 a.m., Martin is woken up by an alarm Jake has set on his laptop. Martin walks into Jake's room. He's laying down all the phones he found in a Fibonacci spiral. Martin ushers him to bed, but before he can close the door after saying goodnight, all the phones start to ring. They all show the same number, 87, 1, 9, 20, 31, 11. The same number as the lottery ticket. Meanwhile, in Baghdad, we see a boy trying his best to imitate his favorite comedian. His mother walks in to tell the aspiring comedian that their oven is now completely broken, so they won't be able to make any money selling bread anymore. The boy assures his mother that he will figure something out. Back in New York, Clea Hopkins, a child and family services worker, arrives at the Bohm residence for an assessment. Clea explains that climbing the cell tower can be a byproduct of Martin working multiple jobs, or the 5 schools Jake has been to in 7 years, and the absence of a mother in the house. Here we find out that Martin was a highly paid reporter at the Herald when Jake was born. But when Jake's mother passed in the Twin Towers, that all changed. After a short conversation, Clea asks to meet Jake, who's been sitting behind her without her even noticing. She offers a handshake when walking towards Jake, but Martin warns her that Jake doesn't let anybody touch him, not even his own father. As Clea talks to Jake, Martin opens the newspaper to see that the winning lottery numbers are the same numbers that Jake wrote down. Excitedly, he shows Clea what his son showed him the night before. We check back in with the owner of the lost phone, who's on his way to Tokyo to sell restaurant supplies because of a huge bakery that's opening there. He calls his wife from the plane to apologize for not being home for their daughter's birthday, but his wife doesn't see the point in celebrating it anyway. Back in New York, Clea tries to explain that children with autism often have heightened abilities with numbers, which Martin already knew. But the doctors haven't found any label that correctly fit Jake. For all Martin knows, Jake doesn't speak because he doesn't have anything to say. Martin thinks that this might be Jake's way of trying to communicate with his father. Clea tries being honest with Martin in telling him that
the truth is, the state is going to mandate a 2-week evaluation to determine if Jacob should be institutionalized.
But Martin is too caught up with the possibility that Jake is trying to communicate. Martin tries to explain that Jake has been obsessively trying to show him the number 318. Unfortunately, Clea just sees this as Martin's desperate need for connection, ultimately convincing Martin to hand Jake over to the boarding care facility very close to him. Back in Baghdad, the boy is thinking of ways he can get money for a new oven, when his friend comes up with the idea to steal an oven from a restaurant. It's very risky since it's a terrorist hangout. But since they can't come up with a better plan, the boy reluctantly agrees. When the boy tries to steal the oven, a group of men walk in, catching the boy in the act. But instead of cutting off his hand, like they usually do, they offer him a way to earn the money for his family. Meanwhile in Tokyo, the lost phone is found by a Japanese woman who was rifling through the man's bag while he was freshening up. We later see her show the phone to her friend, specifically Kayla singing, already talking about starting a fan club and wanting the whole world to see the video. In New York, Martin has agreed to put Jake in a care facility for the 2-week evaluation. He promises to see Jake every day and hands Clea some phones and gives her some advice on how to handle his behavior. All alone, Martin decides to go to his late wife's grave, confessing that this might all be too much for him to handle. Wiping away his tears, he notices a firefighter badge next to the grave with the number 318 on it. Wanting to find answers, Martin comes across a site proclaiming that mutism might be a false diagnosis for a select few. His interest piqued. He goes to the address shown on the site, where a man opens the door. At first, Martin thinks he's got the wrong address, until the man says,
Let me guess. Your kid keeps climbing a cell tower.
This man explains that Jake is one of the people who can see how past, present, and the future is all connected through patterns, and that Martin's job as his parent is to follow the roadmap Jake has laid out for him. Back in the care facility, we see Jake arranging popcorn into rows. As Clea counts them out, she realizes it's her mother's phone number. At the moment of realization, Clea gets a call from that exact number. Following Jake with her gaze, she sees him circling the number 18 on the calendar. Recognizing that 318 can also mean March 18th, Martin is taking this new rule to heart and scanning through Jake's notebook for any clue. He stops on the page with the lottery numbers, seeing that some numbers have been circled. Putting the numbers in the correct order, he understands it's a phone number. When looking up the location, he finds the number to be in Grand Central Station, New York. The knocking is heard from the door. It's Clea. I came to tell him that 318 is today's date. They rush to Central Station to make it before 318. To try and find the phone, Martin calls the number. As he runs towards the ringing, a man reaches the phone before him to make a call. Panicked since it's now 3:18 p.m., Martin grabs the man's shoulders to turn him around, only to notice it's the man who bought the lottery ticket. They get into a fight that's disrupted by security. As the man yells at the officers that he needs to catch his train, Martin can see that the time is now 3:19. Hours later, Martin is woken up at 3:18 a.m. by another alarm set by Jake. When turning it off, Martin sees he has a message on his answering machine. He absent-mindedly listens to it while also watching the news. The message is from a firefighter at Department 318, who was apparently there with his wife trying to save her. He explains how he carried her down 31 flights of stairs from the 87th floor before he couldn't carry her anymore. He talks about how he played the same lotto numbers for 10 years. 9, 11, 2001, 87, 31. It's the same numbers that have now won him the lottery. As Martin listens to the man talk, he hears his own voice in the background from when he tried to get on the phone at Grand Central Station, only now realizing who the man is. As Martin rewinds the message, a news reporter is heard saying the name of the firefighter, grabbing Martin's attention. The firefighter was on his way home when he saw a school bus on fire in a ravine. Because he missed his train, he was there to pull out all the children stuck in the bus. As the firefighter is telling this story, the back of the bus is shown, revealing that it's the same bus as from the gas station. While telling the story, the firefighter comes to the same realization. If Martin hadn't made him miss his train, he wouldn't have been there. In amazement, Martin rushes to the care facility, where he finds out that Jake has escaped. Martin immediately knows where he is. We check back in with the owner of the lost phone, who in a desperate attempt tries to call customer service for his lost phone. Kayla is on the other end, hearing the story about the man's daughter. Today is the 1-year anniversary of her death. Feeling bad for him, Kayla agrees to call the number for him and puts him on hold. The man's in a busy street in Tokyo, where we can see that the Japanese women have put the video of Kayla up on the big screens. When the video ends, the pictures of the man's daughter now show up on the big screens. With tears in his eyes and a big smile on his face, he can finally see his daughter again. Meanwhile, Kayla calls the lost phone number, and the boy in Baghdad is the one to answer it. A bomb has been strapped to him, and a phone is attached to it. Kayla doesn't take it seriously at first, but after the boy pleads with her to tell the news that he was a good man, she starts to believe him. The boy tells her what happened. Kayla pleads with him not to go through with it, but the boy's desperate. He needs an oven. Luckily, Kayla remembers the owner of the lost phone telling her that he sells restaurant supplies. After assuring the boy that she can get him an oven, he takes out the phone batteries and deactivates the bomb. In New York, Martin reaches the phone tower where Jake had run off to before. This time he does climb all the way up, despite his fear of heights. While Martin is climbing up, we see Kayla's video getting over 1 million views on YouTube. The owner of the lost phone returning home, the boy in Baghdad installing the new oven, and the firefighter finally taking the bus to where he was supposed to go. When Martin finally reaches the top, he tells Jake that the kids on the bus are safe because of his numbers. Here's where my favorite scene comes in. I'm just gonna play it.
I don't know if you understand a single word that I'm saying. I don't even know if you hear me. But I can hear you, Jake. Do you understand that? I can hear you now.
Before Martin can truly hug him back, Jake backs away with Martin's phone in his hand, typing the next number in. I really love the father-son relationship in this show. You can see the dad trying his very best to make him feel comfortable and loved. He respects his boundaries and he doesn't push him to be anyone other than himself. I like seeing the little details like Jake's mattress being on the floor, even though there's a bed frame right next to him. That just shows that Martin knows exactly what makes Jake comfortable. I also want to give a shout out to DeviantArt, who played Jake. In my opinion, he played the role very well, especially considering that he was only 11 when the show came out. I am by no means an expert on autism, but from the experiences I do have with autism, a lot of the stuff he portrays is pretty accurate. I also love that throughout the entire show, Jake isn't seen as a freak or weird. I also just love representation in the media in general. This show ran from 2012 to 2013 and was cancelled after only 2 seasons. It was a very interesting and fun show in my opinion, and it's a real shame that there aren't any more seasons. This is the first of many forgotten gems that I'd like to talk about. If you have any shows or movies that fit this category, please leave them in the comments below, and we'll check them out together. Remember, you are loved, you are worthy, and you matter.